Every morning, before the sun rose, Daniel opened his eyes to the same painful reality. His body was exhausted, his hands were covered in small cuts, and there was barely enough money in his wallet to buy breakfast. But whenever he looked at the little girl sleeping peacefully beside him, he forced a smile. Her name was Lily. Pleading faced the dad who hid his pain to give his daughter a better life. Red heart. She was 8 years old, full of dreams, curiosity, and innocent happiness. She believed her father could fix anything. To Lily, her dad was the strongest man in the world. One after the hook/intro ask viewers to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Single Dad Empire, if they believe in kindness. Second chances. What she didn't know was that every night, after she fell asleep, her father quietly cried. Daniel had once dreamed of giving his daughter a beautiful childhood. But after losing his wife and falling into financial hardship, life had become a daily battle. He worked at a construction site during the day, delivered food in the evenings, and sometimes took small repair jobs late at night. He was tired almost all the time. But Lily never saw his pain. Every morning, Daniel prepared her breakfast, packed her school bag, fixed her shoes, and walked her to school. Even when his back hurt, he carried her bag. Even when he had not eaten, he told her he had already eaten. And whenever Lily asked why his clothes were old, he simply smiled and said that he liked them. One cold morning, Lily came running into the kitchen holding a piece of paper. It was a school notice about an upcoming science competition. The winner would receive a scholarship. Lily's eyes were shining with excitement. She wanted to build a small solar-powered house for the competition. She had spent weeks drawing designs and imagining how it would work. Daniel looked at the paper and smiled. Inside, however, his heart sank. The project would require materials they couldn't afford. Still, he placed his hand gently on Lily's head and encouraged her to follow her dream. That evening, Daniel worked an extra shift. The next morning, he worked another. He stopped buying lunch. He walked instead of taking the bus. He repaired his old shoes instead of replacing them. Whenever he earned a little extra money, he put it inside a small envelope hidden beneath his mattress. The envelope was labeled simply, Lily's dream. Days passed. Slowly, the envelope became heavier. Daniel bought small pieces of cardboard, wires, tiny solar panels, batteries, and other materials. He brought everything home secretly so Lily would think the materials had somehow appeared. Together, they worked on the project late into the evenings. Lily would laugh whenever something went wrong. Daniel would laugh with her. But sometimes, when Lily wasn't looking, Daniel would press his hand against his aching back and close his eyes. He never complained. One night, Daniel returned home much later than usual. Lily was already asleep. He quietly entered the room, placed her school shoes beside the bed, and sat down. For the first time, he couldn't hold back his tears. He looked at his daughter sleeping peacefully and whispered a promise to himself that she would never have to live the life he had lived. The next morning, Lily noticed something. Her father was walking strangely. She asked him if he was hurt. Daniel smiled and said he was fine. But Lily wasn't convinced. That afternoon, she secretly followed him. Then she saw something that broke her heart. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of bread. He looked at it for a moment. He hadn't eaten. He was saving it for her. Lily ran home crying. That evening, when Daniel returned, Lily hugged him tightly. For the first time, she didn't ask for anything. She simply held him. Daniel didn't understand why. Lily looked at his tired face and finally realized the truth. Her father wasn't strong because he never felt pain. He was strong because he felt pain every day and still chose to smile for her. A few weeks later, the science competition arrived. Lily stood in front of the judges beside her small solar-powered house. It wasn't the biggest project. It wasn't the most expensive. But it worked. When the tiny solar panel caught the sunlight, a little light inside the model house turned on. The judges were impressed. Lily won first place. But she didn't immediately run toward the trophy. She ran toward her father. Daniel was standing at the back of the room, wearing the same old shirt he had worn for years. Lily hugged him tightly. Daniel tried to smile. But this time, his tears came freely. The scholarship covered Lily's school expenses for years. For Daniel, it was more than a prize. It was proof that every sleepless night, every skipped meal, every painful step, and every sacrifice had been worth it. Years passed. Lily grew into a brilliant young woman. She studied hard, earned scholarships, and eventually became an engineer. On the day she received her first major job offer, she came home carrying an envelope. Daniel was sitting quietly in the same old chair. Lily placed the envelope in his hands. He opened it. Inside was enough money to pay off their debts and repair their little home. Daniel looked at her with tears in his eyes. Now it was her turn to build his. Daniel couldn't speak. He simply pulled his daughter into his arms. For years, Lily had believed that her father had given her everything. But now she understood something deeper. He hadn't given her everything he had. He had given her everything he could have kept for himself. His time. His comfort. His dreams. His strength. And sometimes, even his last meal. That night, Daniel sat beside Lily and looked at the old envelope that once carried the words, Lily's dream. It was empty now. But his heart was full. Because the little girl whose future he had once protected with every ounce of his strength had grown into the woman who was now protecting his. And Daniel finally realized that his greatest sacrifice had never been about money. It had always been about love. A father's love doesn't always arrive with grand gifts. Sometimes, it looks like an old pair of shoes. Sometimes, it looks like a tired smile. Sometimes, it looks like a father saying he isn't hungry when he is. And sometimes, it looks like a man hiding his pain so his child can believe that tomorrow will be better. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire. Red Heart. And before you leave, tell us in the comments, what is the greatest sacrifice your father ever made for you? Because behind many smiling children is a father who quietly fought battles they never knew existed. And sometimes, the strongest people in our lives are the ones who hide their pain just to make sure we never feel it.